nuts. I find actually the flavor superior to the pine nuts. Don't quote me on that. Might get me in trouble, but I really do.
I'm Wendy Holloway, and you're listening to the Flavor of Italy podcast, sharing the very best of Italian food and wine, lifestyle, and people. This is Wendy Holloway, and I'm with Frank Fariello, and we're here for pesto tonight, and we're going to dig so deeply into pesto. So you can see I've got a ton of ingredients here, and so we're going to dig into pesto. And the very first pesto, and what people consider to be truly pesto, is the pesto genovese. And so that's the one that you have you've got garlic, basil, pine nuts usually, or you could do another nut, walnut or whatever. And then, of course, this is my Parmesan cheese. Uh, so those are the basic ingredients. And in a little bit, Frank will explain to you really that, I have the mortar and pestle right over here that you can't see in the screen right now, but you've got that, or my way, which is the cheat, easy way to use a little blender, or you could just even, it could be rough cut, whatever. So lots of ways you can do it. And it's going to yield a different texture, and that'll be a different mouth feel and almost really flavor. And Frank will get into in more detail exactly what those different tools and ways of making the pesto is. So really, this is something you can make very quickly with almost any pasta shape, spaghetti, the trapanese, the busiate, lots of different pastas work. Put it on top of fish or on bruschetta. So almost all pestos lend themselves beautifully to that. And I'll get into some of the other pestos, and one of them I'm thinking of is the pesto trapanese, which is from Trapani down in Sicily. And we food is so influenced by history, and as time goes on, I realize that history is really, in so many ways, determined by geography. So the Genovese sailors who were traders who were going around, they went down to Sicily. And so the Sicilians, they tasted, oh, wow, we really like this pasta Genovese, but we're going to make it with our own local ingredients. So that's how you got this pesto trapanese, and then, lots of the other variations all over the place. And you see this whole array of ingredients I have. And I was just saying to Frank, I finished reading a book about a woman who died in the last century. She's an American, Claire McArthur. I'm not even sure I got her last name correct, but she invented certain things in American fashion that were unheard of for the time. And the concept was the mix and match. So you might have a skirt and a scarf and a top or a necklace, and you would mix them up and have lots of different outfits, and each one exciting in a different way. And I kind of think that that's sort of the way pesto works, and that it would be wonderful if we had listeners from all over the world, but you might say, wait a minute, I can't really grow the beautiful walnuts like these ones that are growing in my garden, or I might not have the fresh tomatoes that I just picked here mid-October here in Rome. But you might have something else. and be inspired and use your own creative flair. Frank, do you want to show us your variation of pesto genovese, and then we'll kind of swap off
Yep.
and
Sounds
go for it.
sounds great. Thanks, Wendy. So yeah, first up today, I'm gonna show you how to make basically a traditional pesto, but with a twist or two. Okay, we're gonna use the old school method with a mortar and pestle. And you will see at the bottom of this, we have a clove of garlic. I don't know if you can see it, clove of garlic and some coarse salt. And that salt's going to help kind of mash up it's going to be a kind of an abrasive, if you like. It's going to help mash the other ingredients, including the garlic to start. Uh, but then we have the other elements, and most pestos will have these various elements to them. But there's always, like everything else in Italian cooking, there are exceptions to the rules. So first up, we have our green. Now, in a traditional pesto genovese, of course, fresh basil. Basil is out of season, let's say, or you feel like something a little bit more uh, peppery or spicy. Why not arugula? And so we're going to make arugula today. You can also use parsley. There are other kinds of greens, and we'll see today in the course of it, lots of different greens can go into a pesto. But I'm going to show you this. The other element, always, or almost always, some kind of nut. Now, typically for pesto genovese, of course, pinoli nuts are de rigueur. That said, and there we go, there's some right there. That said, pinoli nuts is one option, but there are many other options. And, as Wendy was talking about, walnuts are delicious. In fact, often even when I'm making a pesto genovese, I often swap out walnuts. I find actually the flavor is superior to the pine nuts. Don't quote me on that. Might get me in trouble, but I really do. Almonds are another delicious thing. Pistachios, I love pistachios. Sometimes those go in. Are those pistachios there? Wow, fantastic.
They are.
Oh, I want to grab some through the screen. I love those pistachios. Hazelnuts as well. But today, in fact, I am going to use a very unusual, this I've never heard of, and we're going to try it. We're actually going to taste. I've never done it even before. We're going to taste test it today and see how it goes. You're going to have to trust me. Unfortunately, you can't taste it through the screen. But I have these, which are sunflower seeds. I went to the supermarket, and here's the package for those who are living in the U.S. You can maybe take a gander at it's Woodstock. I mean, it doesn't have to be that brand, but I just picked it up.
Frank, I really think that's quite a brilliant idea and something I'm going to try
Uh-huh.
because although they're a seed, they're oily and they kind of lend themselves texture wise
I thought they
to a pesto.
indeed, and I tasted them yesterday without making the pesto, and I said, this might work. So I decided to go ahead with it. I mean, the thing about pinoli nuts, I know, Wendy, you may remember, here in the States, they're like extraordinarily expensive, especially if you get the imported ones imported from Italy or Spain. Number one. And number two, often, as happened to me yesterday when I was shopping for this live, they just don't have them at all. And they can be hard to find. So I think if it works, we'll see. We'll find out in a moment. It's a nice way to kind of substitute, and it's these are relatively easy to find and much cheaper, obviously. But only that's the other typical thing you have is some kind of allium, some kind of aromatic vegetable. Garlic is the most typical, as we saw there. And then finally, cheese is there we go. Cheese, typically either pecorino, a kind of pecorino, often a pecorino sardo, which is a little bit more pecorino toscano, a little bit milder, or Parmigiano Reggiano, or a mix, as I'm using today, of cheese. So anyway, and then of course, last but not least, let me not forget olive oil, nice little olive oil, and of course a bit of salt. So off we go. I'm going to start now. I'm not sure, Wendy. I don't think you mentioned where the word pesto comes from, but as I
So
raise my
that's
pestle,
on you. That's you.
okay. Well, pesto comes from the word pestare, the verb pestare, which means to pound or to crush, which you do with this. pesto, which is pestello in Italian. So pesto is what you do with a pestello. And
Frank,
here I go.
I'm gonna interrupt you for 1 second.
No,
We've spoken about this in the past. So my, look at mine is this, the marble one. And, actually, I had said to you, I want a wooden one like that because
uh-huh.
I think it lends itself better to actually pestare.
It may do. It may do. Already, I've now it's only been a few moments while Wendy was speaking, and already my garlic, I don't know if you can see this, is basically a mush. So I'm going to go to ingredient number 2, the sunflower seeds. These have been whole, by the way, obviously. If they didn't, if they still have their holes, it'd be all for your hurt. And I'm going to do the very same thing, grinding and grinding way. You would do this the same thing with pinoli nuts or walnuts or whatever else. This is a little bit of the hard, this is probably the hardest part of the process here. You start with a up and down motion like this, really pounding away. And then once you've got them into small pieces, then you can start kind of circulating
Rubbing, yeah.
and rubbing them against the sides there. But first thing to do is to pound them into as finely as you can. This is, I think this is okay. I mean, it shouldn't be complete, you want a little texture in there. So here we go. And let me just take this and give you a little bit of a sense. Maybe you can see
You
this on
show
the
us
screen.
really close.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you see
Yeah,
that?
it's a little higher. It's getting there. It's getting there.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, 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 yeah.
So I think we can move now to the next, because this will continue, of course, to get ground up. And we'll start to add the leaves and a little bit more salt. And this time I'm going to use fine salt. Same idea, but the salt also tends to wilt greens, as we all know. So that also helps get this going. And this is going to probably take a little bit of a while, a few minute or two. But already as I pound, I see it's because these are, by the way, if you use arugula, use young, so-called baby arugula,
And no
meaning
stems.
in Italy it would just be plain arugula, but here, you can find rather old arugula, which is not the one to use for this because you need a kind of a delicate leaf. So off we go here. So I think I've gotten to the point. Now here we go. I have again similarly mashed up, and they went pretty quickly, actually, more quickly. There you go. And you can see when you do it this way, by the way, don't expect it to be quite as fine as you would get when you are doing it in a food processor. It will be much more, have a lot more texture, but that's kind of a good thing in my book. Anyway, I'm now adding the grated cheese to this, giving it a final little, and of course, bring it all together with oil, lots and lots of oil. So you get a nice fluid paste. You give it even more, but I'm going to clean off my pestle and go to my spoon now.
I want you to find me one of those wooden ones.
Okay.
Bring it to me.
And you were right. When I stood up, it was a heck of a lot easier. I can
Of
tell you.
course.
So you just add, and this is the old Italian concept of quanto basta. I talk about this a lot on my blog. I don't have, actually you can look on the blog, or I'm sure Wendy has and just use any recipe for pesto genovese, but substitute the arugula. But for the oil, I just say until you get, quanto basta means is what's enough, basically, as much as you need or as much as you like.
And Frank,
And
I mean, I've said this before on other live events and my different posts. My mother-in-law, who passed away 10 years ago, and she was over 90 at the time, I used to say, Nonna, how much salt are you putting in the pasta water? Or how much of this or that?
quanto
And she
basta.
said, just what feels right. I'm like, what
Right.
feels right? What does that mean? But now I kind of say the same sorts of things. Let us see
Exactly.
that very close up. Come close, come
Yes,
close.
get closer.
Oh,
You
yeah,
see?
yeah.
And now it has a nice, creamy, not too liquid, but nice and flowing, and that's what
Yeah,
you
yeah,
to
yeah.
me, that's the texture you want.
Fantastic.
So now for the taste test. Let's see if this is any good because we had mm, you know what? I like it. It has a
A bite.
it definitely has a bite because it's arugula and not basil, and it also the sunflower seeds give it a kind of a nuttiness, more intense nuttiness than the pine nuts. But I really like this. I think this might be a
A new recipe for the blog.
yes, exactly. Very nice. Well, I'm happy. Hope you are too.
Fantastic.
Give it a try.
And then, so of course, you could also have done that in the blender, but I
Absolutely.
think, really the mortar and pestle, although that's, maybe the hardest in many ways, you still have, each ingredient is still the hero. You are aware of the presence of each one.
Yeah.
Whereas in here, what I do frequently, it's all blended together and you have an overall flavor, but the mouthfeel is a creaminess. It's not
Mhm.
as,
Right. This one definitely has texture. And
yes.
like you say, you can taste the different elements. So it's not quite as fused as you would get in a food processor situation.
You've been listening to the Flavor of Italy podcast. Find us at www.flavorofitaly.com and on Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook, and LinkedIn, always as Flavor of Italy.